The village of Bhavanpur was always awake before the sun. Roosters crowed, women drew water from the well, and farmers prepared their bullocks for another day in the fields. Arav, a 17-year-old boy with sharp eyes and a restless spirit, was already up before dawn. His family lived in a small mud house at the edge of the village, surrounded by patches of farmland that barely yielded enough to survive. His father often said, "The land feeds us, but it also chains us." Arav understood this, but unlike many others, he dreamed of more. Every morning, as he worked in the fields or carried firewood from the forest, his mind wandered to places beyond the horizon, cities filled with lights, schools where boys wore clean uniforms, and lives where hunger was not a daily worry. But dreams were a luxury he could only afford at night. By day, reality demanded his hands and his strength. That morning, the sky was painted with soft hues of pink and orange. Arav balanced a bundle of firewood on his shoulder, walking through the narrow dirt path of the forest. The ground was damp from last night's rain, and the air smelled of wet earth and blooming jasmine. As he walked, he hummed an old folk tune his mother often sang while cooking. Suddenly, his humming stopped. He heard something unusual, faint cries carried by the wind. His brows furrowed. It wasn't the sound of a bird or an animal. It was human. "Help. Please. Somebody help me." The voice was desperate, sharp with fear. Arav dropped the firewood without hesitation and sprinted toward the sound. His feet slapped against the muddy ground, and branches scratched his arms, but he didn't slow down. The cries grew louder until he reached the edge of the swampy marshland, a place villagers always warned children to avoid. The mud there was dangerous, filled with hidden pits of quicksand. Arav froze for a moment, scanning the area, and then he saw her. A girl, about his age, was sinking into the quicksand. Her arms flailed wildly, her face streaked with mud and tears. Her voice cracked as she screamed, "Help me. I can't get out." Arav's heart pounded. He knew how deadly quicksand could be. One wrong move, and he could end up sinking alongside her. But he also knew there was no time to think. If he didn't act, she would be gone. "Don't move too much," he shouted, trying to sound calm. "You'll sink faster." The girl turned her terrified eyes toward him. Her face was pale, her lips trembling. She looked nothing like the village girls he knew. Her clothes, though now covered in mud, were expensive, her shoes clearly from the city. A silver bracelet gleamed faintly on her wrist even through the grime. "Please," she sobbed. "I'm sinking. I don't want to die." Arav's mind raced. He scanned the ground around him until his eyes caught a sturdy branch from a fallen tree. He rushed to it, grabbed it with both hands, and dragged it closer. Planting his feet firmly on solid ground, he extended the branch toward her. "Hold on. Grab this." The girl stretched out her trembling hands, her fingers barely reaching the branch. For a terrifying moment, Arav thought she wouldn't make it. Then, with a desperate cry, she clutched the branch tightly. "Hold on and don't let go," Arav yelled. He dug his heels into the earth and pulled with all his strength. His arms shook, his muscles burned, and his heart pounded in his chest. The mud sucked at her body, refusing to release her. It felt like a battle against nature itself. But Arav refused to give up. He leaned back, pulling harder, his body trembling with effort. Slowly, inch by inch, she began to slide out of the quicksand. Her clothes ripped, her shoes were swallowed by the mud, but finally, with one last desperate heave, Arav dragged her onto solid ground. She collapsed beside him, coughing and gasping for breath, her entire body covered in mud. Arav dropped the branch and fell onto his knees, breathing heavily. His heart still raced, but relief washed over him. "You're safe now," he said softly. The girl looked at him, her eyes wide and brimming with tears. "Why, you saved me." Arav nodded, offering her a small smile. Anyone would have done the same. But deep down, he knew that wasn't true. Most villagers would never have risked themselves near the swamp. He had acted without thinking of his own safety. The girl tried to sit up, her hands trembling. Arav quickly offered his cotton towel, a simple, faded piece of cloth his mother had given him to carry. She looked at it, almost surprised, then took it gently and wiped her face. I was walking from the road. My car broke down, and I thought maybe there was a shortcut back to town, she stammered. But I didn't know. Her voice trailed off, and fresh tears spilled down her cheeks. Arav looked at her carefully. Even through the mud, he could see she was different. Her delicate hands, her soft skin, her voice. She didn't belong here. She came from a world far richer than his. You don't need to explain, Arav said, his voice calm. Just don't wander into the forest again. It's dangerous. She nodded quickly, clutching the towel like it was something precious. I'm Alicia, she said quietly, almost hesitantly. Arav gave a simple nod. I'm Arav. He didn't ask her more. In his world, names were enough. He didn't care who her family was or where she came from. They sat in silence for a few moments, both trying to catch their breath. Arav studied her discreetly, the way her long hair clung to her face, the way her eyes seemed too soft for the harshness of the village. She looked fragile, but at the same time, there was a stubborn strength in the way she sat up despite her fear. Finally, Arav stood and extended his hand. Come, let me walk you back to the road. She hesitated, then placed her soft, trembling hand in his. His palm was rough and calloused from years of work, but it steadied her. Slowly, they walked through the forest path together. Every thorn that scratched her feet made her wince, and Arav instinctively slowed his pace, guiding her carefully. When they reached the broken car on the roadside, a driver and a guard ran toward her, their faces panicked. Miss Alicia, where were you? We searched everywhere. Arav stepped back, watching quietly. He realized now that she was someone important, someone far beyond his world. But she didn't tell them about him. Instead, she only nodded and reassured them she was fine. As she was helped into the car, Alicia turned back. Her eyes locked with Arav's, filled with something unspoken, gratitude, guilt, and perhaps something deeper. Arav gave her a faint smile, then turned and began walking back toward the village, the bundle of firewood still lying where he had dropped it. He picked it up and carried it home, but his mind wasn't on the wood anymore. It was on her. And in the car, as the driver pulled away, Alicia stared out of the tinted window at the fading figure of the boy who had saved her life. Her heart whispered words she couldn't say aloud. He doesn't know who I really am. Maybe it's better this way. Days turned into nights, and nights slipped back into days, but for Arav, something had changed forever. He still worked in the fields, carried water from the well, and tended to his goats as if nothing had happened. Outwardly, life remained the same. But inside, a strange warmth lingered in his heart, the memory of the girl with frightened eyes, delicate hands, and a name that echoed in his thoughts like a secret prayer, Alicia. At night, lying on the thin mat in his mud house, he would stare at the cracked ceiling and imagine her world. She didn't belong here, that much was obvious. Her clothes, her shoes, the way she carried herself, all spoke of wealth and privilege. Yet, in that moment by the swamp, she had clung to him not as a rich girl, but as a frightened human being. That memory both comforted and tormented him. Meanwhile, in the bustling city of glass towers and wide roads, Alicia too was restless. She sat at her marble dining table, surrounded by chandeliers and silver cutlery, yet her mind wandered back to the boy with rough hands and kind eyes. No one in her life had ever looked at her without expectation or judgment. Arav didn't know who she was, didn't care about her family's power or fortune, he had simply saved her because it was the right thing to do. That night, she dreamt of his voice, steady and calm, saying, "You're safe now." When she awoke, her pillow was wet with tears she couldn't explain. Over the following days, Alicia found herself growing impatient with her father's social parties, her friends' shallow conversations, and the suffocating world of luxury. One evening, while her father, Rajiv Mehra, discussed business deals with associates, she quietly said, "I want to visit the villages, Papa. I want to see how people live outside the city." Rajiv raised an eyebrow. "Why would you want to go there? You have everything you need here. Those places are dirty, full of struggle." But Alicia persisted. "I want to do charity work. Maybe help a school, or give books to children. It'll look good for our family name, too." Her father, always eager for good publicity, finally relented. "Fine. But you'll take the driver and guards. Don't go wandering off like last time." Alicia smiled faintly. He didn't know her true reason. A week later, dressed in simple clothes this time, Alicia returned to Bhavanpur. The dusty roads, the thatched huts, the earthy smell of the fields, it all felt strangely comforting now. She asked quietly around until she found Arav near the riverbank, washing clothes. He froze when he saw her, the bundle of wet fabric slipping from his hands. You came back." She smiled shyly, her voice soft. "Yes. I had to thank you properly. That day, I left so quickly, I didn't even say enough." Arav shook his head. "There's no need. I didn't do it for thanks." But Alicia wasn't satisfied. Over the next few days, she found excuses to stay. She visited the village school, but her eyes always searched for him. She offered to help women at the well, though she struggled with the heavy pots. She walked through the fields, pretending to admire the crops, but really, she just wanted to be near him. And slowly, Arav stopped resisting. They spent hours talking. She asked about his dreams, and he confessed his desire to study, to become something more than just a farmer's son. She told him about the city, though she hid her true identity, saying only that her family lived comfortably. Together they laughed at small things. Goats stealing vegetables, children chasing each other barefoot, the way the old village teacher snored in class. For the first time, Alicia felt alive. Away from marble floors and chandeliers, she found joy in the simplest of moments, sitting on a mud wall, sharing roasted corn with Arav, listening to the rustle of the fields in the evening breeze. And for Arav, every second with her was like touching a dream he had never dared to dream. But secrets have a way of surfacing. One golden afternoon, the peace of Bhavanpur was shattered. A convoy of black luxury cars roared into the village, raising clouds of dust. The villagers gathered, whispering in awe. Out stepped Rajiv Mehra, dressed in a tailored suit, his expression thunderous. Guards followed him, their presence intimidating against the humble backdrop of mud huts. Alicia's heart dropped when she saw her father. Arav stood beside her, confused, until Rajiv's voice boomed through the silence. "Alicia," he barked. "What are you doing here?" "With him." The villagers gasped, turning their heads toward Arav. Their eyes widened with realization, this girl wasn't just any visitor. Rajiv stormed forward, grabbing Alicia's arm. "Do you have any idea what you're doing? Sneaking off to this place? And with a boy like him?" He turned his sharp gaze on Arav, his tone dripping with disdain. "Do you even know who she is?" Arav stood frozen, words stuck in his throat. Rajiv sneered. "She is Alicia Mehra, my daughter. The only heir to the Mehra empire. And you?" His eyes swept over Arav's torn shirt, his bare feet. "You're nothing but a poor farmer's boy. Stay away from her." The words cut through Arav like a blade. His chest tightened, and for a moment, he couldn't breathe. Alicia turned to her father, her eyes blazing. "Stop it, Papa. He saved my life. If not for him, I wouldn't even be here today." But Rajiv's anger didn't waver. He dragged her toward the car. "You will not meet him again. Do you understand? People like us do not mix with people like him." The guards pushed Arav back roughly, and he stumbled. But he didn't resist. He only stood there, silent, his heart breaking, as Alicia's tear-streaked face turned toward him. I'll find a way, she whispered desperately, just before the car door slammed shut. I promise. The convoy sped away, leaving behind a cloud of dust and a boy whose heart felt heavier than the earth he worked on. For days, Arav wandered through his chores like a ghost. He didn't blame her for hiding the truth. How could someone like her tell someone like him? She belonged to a world of glass towers and riches, while he belonged to the soil and sweat. Still, the memory of her words, "I'll find a way," kept flickering in his mind like a fragile flame. In the city, Alicia fought. She pleaded with her father, reminding him of Arav's courage, his kindness, his honesty. She argued that money meant nothing compared to humanity. Rajiv, stubborn and proud, refused at first. But slowly, her determination wore him down. For the first time, he saw not just a sheltered daughter, but a young woman ready to stand up for what she believed in. Weeks later, one quiet morning, the rumble of luxury cars returned to Bhavanpur. Arav, carrying a basket of vegetables, froze as he saw them. Out stepped Alicia, her face glowing with relief and joy. Behind her was Rajiv Mehra, his expression less stern this time, though still proud. He approached Arav slowly. "I was wrong," Rajiv admitted, his voice firm but softer. "My daughter told me everything. You risked your life to save her. You gave her back to me, and for that, I owe you more than wealth can measure." Arav didn't know how to respond. But when Alicia ran into his arms, tears spilling down her cheeks, he realized he didn't need words. Her embrace was enough. For the boy who once believed his dreams ended at the edge of the village, life had suddenly stretched into something larger, brighter, and filled with possibility. And for the girl who had once been trapped by her golden cage, freedom had come in the form of a boy who had nothing but gave everything. They had found each other across the gulf of wealth and poverty. And some bonds, once tied, were stronger than all the walls in the world.